Hi, I'm Lexi with HyprMX here at Pocket Gamers Connect London 2025. Joining me is Bob Slinn from FunPlus. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Lexi. How are you?
Great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'd love to get started by just having you give us an intro and talk a little bit about your career in gaming.
Sure. No, happy to do it. Happy to be here. So I've been in gaming for probably almost 20 years now at this point. I kind of didn't intend to get into gaming. It sort of happened organically. Once upon a time, I was working at Yahoo doing a bunch of different things, and this was as the dot-com bubble was imploding very rapidly, and I was essentially doing everything entertainment at the time, and gaming is one of those things. And I found myself spending more and more time doing gaming and saw more and more of an opportunity around it. And so I slowly did more of that. And then when time came to move on, I decided to actually take the plunge. And so I moved to EA and I took over a casual gaming business called Pogo in Europe. I was based in London for most of the time. And so that was it. So from that point onwards, that was in early 2000s, I guess. I ended up being in gaming from then on, did EA for a while. Then I went to Facebook for about 8 years, again, based here, leading the EMEA partnerships team. So worked with developers of all stripes, from tiny indie developers to mobile developers to big PC console developers. And so that was when I guess was truly committed. And then after about 8 years there, I decided to move back to the developer side. So I started FunPlus about 3 years ago, and I head up business development for them now.
So what excites you most about leading business development at FunPlus?
Well, one, it's obviously, generally speaking, an exciting time in the industry. I think when I joined 3 years ago, I had a vision of what I was going to do. A lot of working with external partners essentially is my job. So I work with anyone from Apple to Google to Unity to IP partners. So that part I kind of thought I was going to do. And I think the other part that's become huge, and I think this is a bigger trend in the business, is as developers of our size are starting to build direct relationships with customers, there's been a whole other group of partnerships and discussions we've had around building direct consumer relationships, web stores, things like that. So that's probably been the biggest new thing. I think, look, obviously, we have a DC game coming out soon, and that working with someone like Warner Brothers in DC is pretty exciting in and of itself. It's fun to have that contact with people creating and owning such amazing IP.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. I think a good segue into our next question. What are some of the strategies that you have behind building these strong relationships with the people in the gaming industry?
Excellent question. I mean, it's it's funny. As much as it's a $200 billion industry now, gaming is still reasonably small. And I think one of the things that I've always tried to do is just build longer-term relationships and try to be consistent in those relationships that I have with people, because you never know. Again, you look at my side. I was on the platform side, then I went to the developer side, back to the platform, back to the developer. So I'd say one thing is clearly just building those relationships with the view of long-term and trying to exchange value for both parties. That's certainly been important. I think when you talk about the platforms themselves, clearly, they're in a business of serving players and consumers, and I think, again, as long as we're looking at it as some way that we can create value or receive value and there's an exchange, I think that's the other key part. FunPlus specifically, we're kind of in an interesting position where we have our headquarters in Switzerland. We have most of our development teams are in China, so we work with someone like an Apple or a Google. We have games teams and business development relationships directly China to China, or in the case of Google to the Asia teams. And then I also work with the headquarters team. So we have this sort of dual relationship where I will work on some of the longer term relationship-based things, looking at where the platform partners are trying to go in the longer term. And then we have an ongoing day-to-day operational relationship as well locally.
Got it. So as you mentioned in your intro, you've been in the industry for a while now. What are some of the changes that you've seen in business development over the past 2 years?
Look, I think some things haven't changed. Some of the things I just mentioned are pretty consistent. When I was at Yahoo initially, I did business development, and it was all, again, it was a time when no one spent any money, but it was all, again, this exchange of value. I think, as I said, the things that are in some cases changing are initially, when I joined, and I think for a long time, business development, certainly for mobile game development, was really very focused on Apple and Google. That was the core of your business, and you spent all of your time working with those partners. they're still incredibly important, and everything we do runs through them, and the bulk of our audience and revenue runs through them. But I think we're seeing this slow evolution of, both from a player standpoint and a business standpoint, diversification across platforms. So I'd say that from a business development standpoint, we spend more time with a broader mix of partners, and we're also thinking about how do we build a direct-to-consumer business, and we support the teams in that. Because again, it's sort of this crazy phenomenon, this window of time where if you started a mobile games company in 2010 or 12, you built your entire business through Apple and Google. You didn't have to have a direct-to-consumer element, and so I think that's been the biggest shift, I think, strategically, and also from my role in business development, which is just the diversification of relationships and the different things we're trying to solve for and support.
Yeah. Do you have any predictions or trends that you expect to see in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, predictably, given what I just said, we're doing a lot of work with direct to consumer. So we have both, web shops, but we also have more richer experiences for players. So I think that will continue to be a trend. As I said, Apple, Google, mobile still is the core of the business and where the players are, and from a consumer standpoint, they provide a great experience. But I definitely anticipate that will continue to grow. Tied to that is cross-platform gaming. So for example, all our games now have a PC version. I think players expect to be able to play wherever they are and whatever device they're on. So that, it's funny, a bit of a broken record, but when, at Facebook, that was something we were very early to push. And I think that's slowly becoming reality. So I'd say direct to consumer, this idea of cross-platform, like truly cross-platform play, will continue to be bigger. Look, I'm obviously biased, but I think mobile gaming is still where the bulk of the players are, and the growth continues to be. So I expect that, whereas in the last year or two it's been a hard sell, particularly for a smaller mobile developer, I think mobile is still the place where the players are, and I think the growth will continue to come from there. And I think you'll also see within that a geographic diversification. I mean, we've seen India grow to be a hugely important market. I think Africa is growing. You'll see. So I think that's the other thing, is continued diversification in terms of the markets that matter and where developers will monetize and focus on players.
My final question was just, what can we expect from FunPlus this year? I feel like you kind of touched upon that already, but is there any other fun projects or things that you're excited about in the pipeline?
Yeah, I'll reiterate that we have a DC game coming very soon, which DC Dark Legion, which we're very excited about. That's a big bet. We've already announced we have a game based on the Foundation IP, Isaac Asimov, so that's also not far from release. So those, I think, are probably the two biggest bets we have, which should hopefully help us to grow and reach new audiences.
Very cool, very exciting. Well, good luck with the rest of 2025. We're looking forward to hearing all those updates and about the game releases. And thank you so much for sitting down with us today.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.